biggest Cuban intelligence efforts against the United States do not take place in North America. It is in the Caribbean and Central America where the Cuban DGI, backed by the Soviet KGB, are actively assisting revolutionary movements hostile to the United States. In 1978, the government of the Caribbean island of Grenada was replaced by a Marxist regime led by Morris Bishop.
The government of the criminal dictator Eric M. Gary has been overthrown. All police stations are hereby ordered to put up a white flag as a symbol of surrender.
One by one, the governments that have been called right-wing dictatorships are being attacked and replaced by left-wing dictatorships financed by the Cubans.
Brother Morris Bishop, the long night of terror, the long night of repression and hardship has ended.
In Grenada, one of the first acts of the new government was to bring in Cubans to build a new airport. The airport, like the island itself, has military importance to the Cubans and ultimately to the Soviets. Grenada's proximity to the Venezuelan and Middle Eastern oil tanker routes to the U.S. make it an important strategic location. And in Nicaragua, where the Sandinistas overthrew the regime of Anastasia Somoza, over 3,000 Cubans moved in immediately after the revolution. On the first anniversary of their takeover, the new government staged a celebration for visiting guests, like Fidel Castro, whose ambassadors to Nicaragua, Lopez Diaz, and to Grenada, Torres Rizzo, are top DGI officers. One of the speakers was Morris Bishop of Grenada.
In 1981, we will be able to speak not just of revolutionary Cuba.
Ya podamos hablar no solo de la Cuba revolucionaria,
not just of revolutionary Nicaragua,
no solo de la Nicaragua revolucionaria,
but also of revolutionary El Salvador,
sino también de un El Salvador
and
revolucionario,
revolutionary Guatemala,
y de una
and
Guatemala y un Honduras revolucionario.
El Salvador, Guatemala, Puerto Rico. One after the other, the revolutionary movements of the islands and the Central American nations are being assisted by the Cubans, and behind them, the Soviets. Puerto Rico is an important area for Cuban activities. Electronically linked with Navy installations on the U.S. mainland, Puerto Rico is crucial as a submarine tracking base. Using top-secret undersea monitoring equipment, Americans are able to keep track of Soviet submarine actions on the entire Atlantic coastline. In April 1980, 10 FALN Puerto Rican revolutionaries were arrested outside Chicago, Illinois. With them was a van filled with explosives and arms. They were convicted on February 11, 1981, of seditious conspiracy for a wave of bomb blasts that have killed 5 people and wounded at least 100 others.
Does Castro run the Puerto Rican movement in the United States?
Sí, yes. Conozco de muchas operaciones. I know of many operations que se hicieron a través del centro de Nueva York that were done through the center of New York. Donde se les dio dinero, se les ha dado dinero, where they received money, explosivos, explosives, armas, weapons, y reclutamiento que recruitment that was made for them to work in the United States.
Soviet naval activities in the Caribbean and the Atlantic are of increasing strategic significance, as is Havana's harbor to the Soviet fleet. In addition to surface ships, submarines are a vital part of a growing armada. For submarines are hard to detect as they lie off America's shores armed with nuclear missiles. Fishing ships are another part of the Soviet Armada off the shores of North America. Often used for electronic intelligence gathering, the fishing ships also serve as shields, protecting the submarines below from the radar and sonar of the anti-submarine forces of the Americans and Canadians. It was on one of these ships that Boris Stern served.
The submarine kept contact with my ship. When we came near Newfoundland, the captain had a radiogram on the submarine location. My ship, the fishing ship, covered the submarine from the airplanes above.
These ships have also been used to provide Irish terrorists with arms.
My ship, this is a fishing ship and not a military ship. At 2 o'clock at night, as my ship came near Ireland, 2 boats with Irish people came to the ship, and the KGB officer on our boat, Misha Boulanger, gave them a very big box, we think, of arms.
Soviet espionage efforts in North America are designed to assist the capabilities of their submarines in the Atlantic and Caribbean. Some of these efforts have seemed trivial, yet the results are still affecting Canadian and American security. This Canadian civil servant was targeted by the KGB. He was at first offered small payments for unclassified information, but the promise of larger sums soon led to his acquiring more sensitive strategic documents, such as classified naval maps of old wrecks that lay on the bottom of the Atlantic along the Canadian coastline. William Kelly was head of the security service of the Royal Canadian Mounted Police at the time.
Well, now, these maps were of extreme importance to the Russians, and particularly for their submarine commanders, because when there was the patrol boats of the Canadian Navy on the surface, the submarine would know it, and to avoid detection, that's all the submarine had to do was settle down alongside of a wreck, so that when the patrol boat above would make contact with some sounding device with the bottom of the ocean with some metal down there, he'd look on a map and he'd say, oh yes, this is just a wreck. And he'd move on, leaving the submarine to continue its patrol safely.